The day had started like any other. The streets of New York were alive with honking cars, impatient pedestrians, and the never-ending hum of the city. People went about their routines, unaware that this would be the last normal morning they would ever experience. Ethan Carter, a 32-year-old paramedic, was already exhausted from a long shift. He had responded to multiple distress calls that morning, people collapsing in the streets, violent outbursts in train stations, emergency rooms overflowing with patients who were burning up with fevers. Something felt off. The reports were too widespread, the symptoms too bizarre. But there was no time to question things. Ethan had a job to do. Meanwhile, across the city, 17-year-old Lucy Bennett was sitting in her high school classroom, staring out the window. The teacher droned on about history, but something outside caught her eye. A man in a blood-stained business suit staggered along the sidewalk, his movements unnatural, jerky, almost as if he was being controlled by invisible strings. She nudged her best friend, Sam. "Hey, look at that guy, something's wrong with him." Sam barely glanced up from his phone. "Probably drunk," he muttered. Lucy wasn't convinced. Moments later, a scream pierced the air. The man had collapsed, and before anyone could react, he lunged at a nearby woman, tearing into her neck with his teeth. Panic erupted. Students rushed to the windows. A security guard sprinted toward the scene, but the attacker, if he could even be called that anymore, turned on him next. Blood splattered across the pavement. Lucy's stomach twisted in horror. What the hell is happening? Across town, Ethan was finishing up another call when his radio crackled with a frantic voice. All available units, civilian casualties, unidentified infections spreading fast, hostile individuals attacking pedestrians. His blood ran cold. He flipped on the sirens and sped toward the scene, but before he could get far, the ambulance was suddenly surrounded by chaos. People were running, screaming. Others were attacking, biting, ripping into flesh like rabid animals. Ethan barely managed to slam on the brakes as a bloodied man threw himself at the windshield. The man's milky eyes met Ethan's for a brief second before his face smashed against the glass, leaving a streak of crimson. "Jesus Christ," his partner, Maria, whispered. "What the hell is going on?" Ethan didn't have an answer. Back at the high school, Lucy and Sam were scrambling to escape the classroom as the chaos outside spilled into the hallways. Students screamed as one of their own, a boy who had been feeling sick just minutes earlier, lunged at a teacher, sinking his teeth into her shoulder. The infection was spreading fast. Meanwhile, at a nearby military base, Captain Daniel Graves watched the unfolding crisis on a dozen security monitors. Reports were coming in from across the country, hell, across the world. Every major city was falling to the same mysterious outbreak. A virus? A biological attack? No one knew. But one thing was clear. The world was collapsing. And survival would mean doing the unthinkable. The world had officially gone to hell. Ethan gripped the steering wheel of the ambulance, his heart hammering in his chest. The streets were unrecognizable, cars abandoned in the middle of the road, bodies lying motionless, and worse, people, or what used to be people, staggering aimlessly, their blank eyes scanning for movement. Maria sat beside him, her hands trembling as she checked the radio for updates. Static. Then a garbled voice broke through. "This is Officer Reynolds, requesting backup on 5th, zombies everywhere, do not engage." The transmission cut off in a burst of static. Zombies. The word hit Ethan like a punch to the gut. It was absurd, impossible, yet he had just watched a man rip into another human being's throat with his teeth. If this wasn't a nightmare, then what the hell was it? A loud thud against the side of the ambulance made both of them jump. A bloodied woman slammed her hands against the window, her mouth open in a silent scream. But something was wrong. Her eyes were vacant, soulless, and her movements unnatural, jerky, twitching like a broken puppet. Then, without warning, she lunged at the glass, her teeth gnashing against it with an inhuman hunger. Maria gasped. "Go, Ethan. Go!" He didn't need to be told twice. Slamming his foot on the gas, he swerved around the wreckage in the street, barely avoiding the growing horde. Bodies crashed against the ambulance as he pushed through, but he didn't stop. Couldn't stop. Meanwhile, at the high school, Lucy and Sam were caught in a nightmare of their own. The once busy halls were now filled with terrified students screaming for help. Blood painted the walls, bodies lay motionless, or worse, twitching. A teacher had tried to lock the doors, but it was too late. The infection was already inside. Run! Lucy grabbed Sam's hand, pulling him toward the nearest exit. A girl in their class, Megan, suddenly collapsed in front of them. She clutched her stomach, groaning. I don't feel so good. Sam hesitated. We have to help her. Lucy shook her head, her gut telling her something was terribly wrong. No, Sam, we can't. But before she could finish, Megan's body convulsed violently. Her breathing grew ragged. And then, her eyes snapped open, lifeless and glassy. She lunged. Sam barely dodged in time as Megan's fingers clawed at his face, her teeth snapping inches from his throat. Run! Lucy screamed. They bolted, shoving past panicked students, making a beeline for the emergency exit. Across the city, Captain Daniel Graves stood in front of his commanding officer, his face unreadable. Sir, we need to contain this now. This isn't just an outbreak, it's a total collapse. The general's expression was grim. Orders just came in from the top. We're to secure the quarantine zones and establish safe zones. Daniel stiffened. And the people outside? The general hesitated before responding. They're on their own. Daniel clenched his fists. He had sworn an oath to protect the people, but now they were being ordered to abandon them. A soldier burst into the room. Sir! We have a breach at the perimeter. Daniel didn't need to hear more. He grabbed his rifle and followed the soldier out. The world was burning. And it was just the beginning. Ethan maneuvered the ambulance through the chaos, but it was becoming impossible to drive. Abandoned vehicles clogged the streets, fires raged in the distance, and the undead were everywhere. Each turn revealed more horror, people screaming for help, others being dragged to the ground and devoured, and the worst part? There was nothing he could do. We can't stay in the city, Maria said, gripping the dashboard as Ethan barely avoided crashing into a wrecked police cruiser. We need to get out before it's too late. Ethan nodded, scanning the road ahead. If we can get to the bridge, we might. A deafening explosion cut him off. A gas station up ahead erupted in flames, sending shockwaves through the streets. The ambulance shook violently as debris rained down. Ethan slammed the brakes just in time to see a massive horde emerging from the smoke, shambling toward them with eerie coordination. Maria's voice trembled. They're everywhere. The horde was bigger than anything they had seen before. Dozens, no, hundreds, of the undead flooded the streets, drawn by the explosion. They weren't just wandering aimlessly anymore. They were hunting. Ethan threw the ambulance into reverse, but a loud bang against the side made him freeze. A police officer, alive, slammed his hands against the window. Let me in. Please, for the love of God, let me in. Without hesitation, Ethan yanked the door open, pulling the man inside just as the undead swarmed the vehicle. Drive, the officer shouted. Ethan floored it. As they sped through the city, Maria turned to their new passenger. Who are you? Officer Reynolds, he panted, trying to catch his breath. His uniform was torn, blood smeared across his sleeves, though it didn't seem to be his. It's not just here. The whole damn country is going down. The military is pulling out. The government is. A piercing screech filled the air, followed by a sickening crash. Ethan barely had time to react as an out-of-control truck plowed into the side of the ambulance. The world spun. Then, darkness. At the high school, Lucy and Sam were still running. The emergency exits had been locked, security protocol, meant to keep students safe from normal threats. But this This was anything but normal. The infected were everywhere now. Students, teachers, it didn't matter. If you were bitten, you turned. Fast. Sam pounded on a classroom door. "Let us in." Inside, a group of terrified students hesitated. "Please," Lucy begged. Finally, someone unlocked it. She and Sam scrambled inside, gasping for breath as the door slammed shut behind them. There were about a dozen students inside, all looking just as scared as they were. Some were crying, others just stared blankly at the floor. "We're not gonna make it, are we?" one of the younger kids whispered. Lucy swallowed hard. She wanted to tell them everything would be fine. That help was coming. But she didn't believe it herself. At the military base, Captain Daniel Graves stood on the perimeter wall, watching as the infected swarmed the fences. His radio crackled to life. "All non-essential personnel, begin evacuation." Daniel clenched his jaw. "And the civilians?" No response. He turned to his squad. "We're not leaving them." One of his men shifted uncomfortably. "Sir, we have direct orders. To let innocent people die." Daniel snapped. "We're soldiers. We protect people." The growls of the undead grew louder. The fence wouldn't hold much longer. Daniel made his choice. "Get the trucks. We're getting as many out as we can." The city was falling. But he wasn't about to let everyone die with it. Ethan awoke to the sound of groaning metal and distant screams. His vision blurred as he tried to sit up, pain shooting through his ribs. The ambulance was on its side, smoke curling from the wreckage. Shattered glass glittered around him like tiny stars. A cough beside him snapped him back to reality. Maria. She was pinned between the dashboard and the door, blood trickling down her forehead. "Maria. Hold on, I'll get you out," Ethan said, ignoring the searing pain in his shoulder. A groan, not from Maria, echoed from outside. Then another. Then dozens. His heart pounded as shadows passed over the broken windows. The undead were closing in. "Maria, we need to move now." She winced but nodded. Ethan braced himself and pulled her free. As they scrambled out of the wreckage, Officer Reynolds appeared from the other side, his gun drawn. "We need to run," Reynolds hissed. They heard the crash. Ethan turned, his stomach twisted at the sight. A wave of zombies staggered toward them, their lifeless eyes locked onto their next meal. They ran. The streets were a war zone. Fires raged unchecked, bodies littered the sidewalks, and the air was thick with the scent of death. Every few steps, Ethan caught glimpses of the horror, someone being pulled down, their screams abruptly cut short, a mother shielding her child, knowing there was no way out, a man clutching his bitten arm, tears streaming down his face as he realized what was coming. "There!" Reynolds pointed toward an alleyway. "We can cut through." They darted into the narrow passage, shoving past dumpsters and debris. But the moans didn't fade. The undead were everywhere now, spilling into every corner of the city. Maria doubled over, gasping for breath. "Where are we even going?" Reynolds wiped sweat from his brow. The military set up an evacuation point at the Lincoln Tunnel. Ethan frowned. "You think they're still there?" Reynolds hesitated. "We don't have a choice. It's our best shot." A scream tore through the air, a young girl, no older than 10, trapped behind a wrecked taxi. 3 zombies advanced on her, their clawed hands reaching hungrily. Maria gasped. "We have to help her." Ethan hesitated. They didn't have time. They barely had a plan. But, damn it. Before he could second-guess himself, he bolted toward the girl, drawing the pocket knife from his belt. He wasn't a soldier, but he'd be damned if he let a kid die in front of him. The first zombie lunged, Ethan sidestepped and drove the blade into its skull. It collapsed instantly, but the other 2 turned their attention toward him. "Ethan!" Maria called out. One of the creatures lunged, Ethan barely dodged, stumbling backward. Its rotten fingers scraped his arm, but before it could grab hold, a gunshot rang out. The zombie's head snapped back, a gaping hole where its eye had been. Ethan turned to see Reynolds lowering his gun. "Move!" Ethan scooped the girl into his arms and sprinted back to Maria. The groans were getting louder. The gunshot had attracted more. They ran. At the high school, Lucy and the others huddled together, their breaths shallow. The infected had broken into the hallways, and now the only thing keeping them safe was the locked classroom door. Bam! Something slammed against it. Bam! Bam! Sam flinched. "They're gonna get in." Lucy scanned the room, her mind racing. There had to be another way out. Then she spotted it, the air vent. "Help me," she whispered, dragging a chair toward it. Sam caught on and boosted her up. She pried the grate open, peering inside. "It's tight, but we can fit." One by one, the students climbed inside, moving as quickly as they could. Sam was the last to go, and just as he pulled his legs in, the door shattered. A chorus of guttural moans filled the room. Lucy didn't look back. She just crawled. At the military base, Captain Daniel Graves stood by the evacuation trucks, watching the city burn. His men were loading the last of the supplies when a frantic soldier ran up. "Sir!" The infected have breached the outer wall. Daniel's grip on his rifle tightened. "Then we leave now." The convoy rumbled to life, engines roaring as they prepared to move. But as they pulled out, Daniel saw something that made his stomach drop. Hundreds of civilians were running toward them, men, women, children, desperate, pleading. The trucks were full. There was no room. A mother pounded on the side of a vehicle, her child sobbing in her arms. "Please! Take us with you." Daniel's hands clenched into fists. Then the infected appeared behind them. And there was nothing he could do. The order came through his earpiece. "Do not stop. Keep moving." His gut twisted. But he obeyed. As the trucks rolled forward, leaving the screaming civilians behind, Daniel Graves knew one thing for certain. There were no more second chances. The world was ending. The city was drowning in chaos. Fires burned unchecked, smoke choked the sky, and the streets echoed with screams, both human and inhuman. Ethan's legs burned as he ran, Maria right behind him, the little girl clinging to his arm like a lifeline. Officer Reynolds covered their escape, firing at the undead, but with each shot, more of them turned toward the noise. "We can't keep running forever," Maria panted. Ethan spotted a convenience store up ahead. The front window was shattered, but the place looked empty. "In there! Hurry!" They dove inside, Reynolds sliding the metal security gate shut behind them. The undead banged against it moments later, their fingers clawing uselessly at the bars. "Not gonna hold for long," Reynolds muttered, reloading his gun. Ethan set the girl down. She was still shaking, eyes filled with terror. Maria knelt beside her. "What's your name, sweetie?" The girl swallowed hard. "Anna." Maria forced a smile. "It's gonna be okay, Anna." Ethan wished he could believe that. He peered through the broken window. The city was a war zone, but one thing was clear, things weren't just falling apart anymore. They had fallen. He turned back to Reynolds. "You said the military was evacuating people at Lincoln Tunnel. You sure about that?" Reynolds hesitated. "Last I heard." Ethan frowned. "And if they're gone?" Reynolds sighed. "Then we're screwed." A sudden noise from the back of the store made them all freeze. A rustling. A footstep. Ethan's heart pounded. He raised his knife, Reynolds aimed his gun, and Maria grabbed a metal pipe from a shelf. "Who's there?" Ethan called out. Silence. Then, "Don't shoot. We're alive." A man and a woman emerged from the shadows, their hands raised. They were dirty, bruised, but breathing. Survivors. The man was in his 40s, with graying hair and a weary face. Name's Carter. This is my wife, Dina. Ethan didn't lower his knife. Please, Dina said. We just want to get out of the city. Maria glanced at Ethan. We should stick together. But Reynolds' grip on his gun tightened. Or they could be lying. Carter scowled. Lying about what? That you're not infected. The room went silent. Reynolds stepped forward, gun raised. Shirts off. Both of you. Dina gasped. What? We check for bites, or you're not coming with us, Reynolds said coldly. Ethan wasn't sure how to feel about this, but he couldn't deny the logic. He had already seen how fast people turned. Carter's jaw tightened, but he slowly unbuttoned his shirt, revealing nothing but bruises. Dina hesitated. Maria stepped forward. Dina. Tears filled Dina's eyes. I didn't want to hide it. I just wanted a little more time. She pulled down her sleeve. A bite mark. Fresh. Carter's face crumpled. No. Reynolds cocked his gun. Wait. Maria shouted. She's still alive. She hasn't turned yet. Doesn't matter, Reynolds said. You know how this ends. Ethan's mind raced. Could they risk it? Could they afford to let her stay? Carter stepped in front of Dina. I won't let you hurt her. Reynolds tensed. The moment stretched unbearably. Then Dina grabbed Carter's hand, her voice trembling. It's okay, honey. I'm already gone. Before anyone could react, she grabbed a shard of broken glass from the floor. And slit her own throat. Blood poured from the wound as she collapsed into Carter's arms. He let out a broken sob, holding her close, rocking back and forth. No one spoke. Finally, Carter looked up, eyes empty. She was all I had. Ethan swallowed hard. I'm sorry. Carter gently laid Dina's body down, then stood. I'll help you get to the tunnel. His voice was hollow. But after that, I don't care what happens. Reynolds lowered his gun. The undead outside pounded harder against the gate, sensing fresh blood. We need to go, Maria whispered. Ethan nodded. They gathered what supplies they could, then slipped out the back door into the burning city. Ahead, the Lincoln Tunnel loomed in the distance. And with it, their last chance at survival. The Lincoln Tunnel was less than a mile away, but it felt like a lifetime. The streets were a graveyard, littered with abandoned cars and bodies. Fires burned in the distance, casting eerie shadows that danced against the buildings. Ethan, Maria, Reynolds, Carter, and little Anna moved cautiously, staying low, avoiding unnecessary noise. The undead were everywhere now, roaming aimlessly, their groans filling the air. We have to be smart about this, Reynolds whispered. One wrong move, and we're dead. Ethan scanned the area ahead. That gas station. He pointed to a small, shattered convenience store near the entrance of the tunnel. We can check if the military really set up an evacuation point. Carter snorted. If they're still there. No one responded. They reached the gas station's entrance, stepping over shattered glass. Inside, the shelves had been ransacked, empty wrappers and broken bottles covering the floor. A radio crackled near the counter. Maria rushed toward it, turning the dial. Come on, give me something. Static. Then. This is Captain Daniel Graves of the U.S. military. If you are receiving this message, evacuate immediately. The city is lost. The Lincoln Tunnel has been compromised. The convoy is moving north. Do not attempt to follow. The radio cut off. Maria's face paled. They're gone. Ethan's stomach twisted. That was it, their only plan, gone in an instant. No, Reynolds muttered. No, that can't be right. Carter slammed his fist against the counter. I told you. The military doesn't save people. They leave them. A loud crash from outside made them all freeze. Reynolds rushed to the window. His face went pale. "We've got company." Outside, a massive horde of zombies was shuffling toward them. Hundreds. Anna whimpered, grabbing Maria's hand. "What do we do?" Ethan scanned the area. Trapped. The front entrance was useless, and the back alley was blocked by a collapsed bus. "We're sitting ducks," Carter growled. Ethan's mind raced. Think. Then he saw it. The sewer entrance near the gas station's parking lot. "We go underground." Reynolds followed his gaze and nodded. "That might work." "Might." They sprinted out the back door, Maria lifting Anna into her arms. Ethan and Reynolds pried open the sewer grate, the stench of rot and decay hitting them instantly. "We don't have a choice," Ethan said. "Go!" One by one, they climbed down, the moans of the undead growing louder. The last one in was Carter. He hesitated, looking up at the oncoming horde. Then, he slammed the grate shut and turned toward them. "What are you doing?" Maria gasped. Carter met Ethan's eyes. "You'll need time to get away." Ethan's stomach dropped. "Carter, no." But Carter had already drawn his knife. He smirked. "I don't got anything left to live for, kid." Then he turned, charged toward the horde, and disappeared beneath a wave of rotting bodies. Maria choked back a sob. Reynolds muttered a curse. But there was no time to grieve. "Move," Ethan whispered, leading them deeper into the tunnels. The sewer was a nightmare. Dark. Filthy. The air thick with decay. Rats scurried along the sides, their red eyes gleaming. The sound of dripping water echoed endlessly. Anna shivered. "It's so scary." Maria pulled her close. "I know, sweetheart. Just hold on." Reynolds checked his gun. "We don't know what's down here." Ethan moved cautiously, his heart pounding. Every step felt like walking into the unknown. Then, a splash behind them. Ethan spun around, knife raised. Silence. Then another splash. Closer. Reynolds aimed his flashlight toward the tunnel behind them. The beam of light flickered, illuminating the darkness. And that's when they saw it. A zombie, but not just any zombie. This one was fast. It lurched forward, water splashing violently as it charged. Ethan barely had time to react. The creature was on him, its snarling teeth inches from his throat. Bang! Reynolds fired. The shot echoed through the tunnel. The zombie collapsed. Maria gasped. "What the hell was that?" Reynolds wiped sweat from his brow. "Some of them, they change." Ethan swallowed hard. That was not good news. Then they heard something worse. A deep, low growl. Not human. Not undead. Something else. And it was coming for them. A deep, guttural growl rumbled through the tunnels, reverberating off the damp walls. It wasn't the mindless moaning of a zombie, this was something else. Something worse. Ethan gripped his knife tighter, his heartbeat hammering in his ears. Maria pulled Anna closer, whispering for her to stay silent. Reynolds aimed his flashlight down the tunnel. Whatever that is, it's not alone. A second growl echoed, this time from behind them. Ethan turned sharply. Shadows shifted in the tunnel's darkness, and then, movement. A pair of glowing, yellow eyes appeared in the distance. "Run!" They bolted down the tunnel, splashing through knee-high sewage. The sound of rapid footsteps, clawed footsteps, chased after them. Maria gasped as she stumbled, nearly dropping Anna. Ethan grabbed her arm and pulled her up. "Keep going!" Reynolds fired a shot over his shoulder. The muzzle flash illuminated their pursuer for just a second. And what he saw made his blood run cold. It was a zombie, but twisted. Its body was unnaturally thin, bones protruding beneath rotting skin. Its jaw was elongated, its fingers ending in razor-sharp claws. And it was fast. "It's mutated!" Reynolds yelled. The creature lunged, slashing at Ethan. He barely ducked in time, the wind from the strike brushing past his face. The tunnel walls trembled from the force of its movements. They couldn't outrun it. "We need to fight," Ethan shouted. Reynolds cursed but nodded. "Find cover." Maria and Anna pressed against a rusted maintenance ladder while Ethan and Reynolds turned to face the monster. The creature let out a horrifying shriek, then charged. Bang! Reynolds fired again, a headshot, but the bullet only staggered the beast. "It's still standing?" Maria cried. Ethan saw it now, this wasn't like the others. It was evolving, adapting to their weapons. Knife fights wouldn't work. Bullets weren't stopping it. But fire might. Ethan's eyes darted to a rusted gas pipe running along the tunnel wall. If they could rupture it, they could create an explosion. He grabbed a nearby wrench and swung at the pipe, hard. A loud hiss erupted as gas leaked into the tunnel. "Everyone, cover your mouths," he shouted. Reynolds understood instantly. He took out his lighter, flicked it open. Whoosh! A fireball ignited, swallowing the tunnel in an instant. The creature shrieked as flames engulfed it, its body thrashing wildly. Its glowing eyes locked onto Ethan one last time before it collapsed, its flesh burning away. Then, silence. Only the crackling of fire remained. Ethan slumped against the wall, breathing hard. Maria clutched Anna tightly, her face streaked with dirt and tears. "Is it dead?" Anna whispered. Reynolds kicked at the smoldering corpse. "It didn't move." "Yeah," he muttered. "For now." But something about the way he said it made Ethan uneasy. Because if one zombie could mutate into this, how many more were out there? They pressed on. The tunnel led them to a rusted maintenance door. Ethan pried it open, revealing a set of stairs leading up. "We're getting close," Maria whispered. Reynolds nodded. "We just have to hope we're not walking into a trap." They climbed carefully, each step echoing in the silence. When they reached the top, Ethan pressed his ear against the door. No sounds. No moaning. He slowly pushed it open. And stepped out into a subway station. The platform was eerily empty. The flickering lights overhead cast long, distorted shadows. A single train car sat abandoned on the tracks, its doors open. Maria exhaled. "It's quiet. Too quiet." Ethan moved cautiously, scanning the area. His eyes landed on a sign overhead. "Exit, Lincoln Tunnel Detour. A way out." Reynolds approached a map on the wall, tracing a path with his finger. "If this tunnel leads to the emergency route, we might be able to make it out of the city." For the first time in hours, hope flickered in Ethan's chest. Then, a gunshot rang out. Ethan dove for cover as a bullet whizzed past his head, slamming into the wall behind him. "Ambush!" Reynolds shouted. They scrambled behind a row of overturned seats. Footsteps echoed from the far end of the platform. Then a voice, cold and calculating. Well, look what we have here." A group of armed survivors emerged from the shadows. Their leader, a scarred man with a rifle slung across his back, smirked. "We've been watching you," he said. "And I gotta say, you're tougher than most." Ethan's stomach nodded. Survivors. But not the good kind. Reynolds muttered under his breath. "I knew it was too quiet." Maria held Anna close as the leader stepped forward, his gun still trained on them. "You can make this easy," the man said. "Give us your weapons. Your supplies. And maybe we'll let you walk away." Ethan clenched his jaw. They had survived zombies. They had survived mutants. Now they had to survive people. And somehow, that felt like the most dangerous challenge yet. Ethan's grip on his knife tightened. The scarred man and his gang of armed survivors had them cornered, their weapons trained on him, Reynolds, Maria, and little Anna. "We don't want trouble," Ethan said cautiously, eyeing their leader. "We just want to get out of the city." The man smirked. You think you're the first to say that? He glanced at Maria and Anna, his eyes lingering a little too long. People say a lot of things when they're desperate. Maria's breath hitched. Anna clung to her side, fear in her wide eyes. Ethan knew what this was. A test. They weren't just looking for supplies. They were looking for weaknesses. Reynolds shifted beside him, hand hovering near his holster. I count 5, he muttered under his breath. 2 at the front, 1 on the stairs, 2 near the train. Ethan nodded subtly. If they were going to make a move, it had to be now. The leader sighed. I'll be generous. Drop your weapons. Walk away. Reynolds let out a dry chuckle. Yeah? And how do we know you'll let us live? The man grinned. You don't. That was all Ethan needed to hear. He struck first. In a flash, he lunged forward, slamming his knife into the leader's shoulder, not enough to kill, but enough to cause chaos. The man screamed. Reynolds fired. Bang! One of the gunmen went down. Maria grabbed Anna and ran for cover as bullets ripped through the station. Ethan tackled the leader to the ground, knocking his rifle aside. The man swung wildly, landing a blow against Ethan's ribs. Pain shot through him, but he didn't let go. He slammed his elbow into the man's face, sending him sprawling. Reynolds took down another attacker, but a bullet grazed his arm. He cursed, ducking behind an overturned bench. Maria grabbed a loose pistol from a fallen gunman. She wasn't a fighter, but she could protect Anna. One of the gang members made a move for Maria. Ethan saw it. Maria, down. She dropped just as Ethan threw his knife. It hit home, sinking deep into the attacker's neck. The man collapsed without a sound. Only one enemy remained, the leader. Bleeding. Furious. But still alive. He staggered to his feet, reaching for his gun. Bang! Reynolds put a bullet in his leg. The man fell, clutching his wound. Ethan walked up, his breathing heavy, his body aching. He grabbed the man's own rifle and aimed it at him. Please, the leader gasped, blood dripping from his mouth. You don't have to. Ethan didn't hesitate. Bang! The man slumped over. It was done. Silence filled the subway station. The only sounds were their heavy breaths and Anna's quiet sobs. Maria knelt beside her. Shoo, sweetheart, it's okay. Ethan wiped blood from his face, turning to Reynolds. You good? Reynolds nodded, pressing a hand to his bleeding arm. I've had worse. Ethan took a deep breath and looked around. The station was theirs. They had survived. Now they had to escape. The exit's this way, Reynolds said, pointing toward a stairwell leading to an emergency tunnel. They didn't waste time. They moved quickly, stepping over bodies, grabbing supplies from the fallen. They found ammo, food, and even a first aid kit, a rare blessing. At the top of the stairs, Ethan pushed open the rusted door. A rush of cold night air hit them. They had made it. The city was still a wasteland. Fires burned in the distance. The sky was dark, the streets empty except for the occasional lurking shadow. But beyond the ruins, beyond the undead, was hope. Reynolds exhaled. We're not safe yet. Ethan looked at Maria and Anna. The little girl was holding onto Maria's hand tightly, eyes filled with exhaustion and fear. No, Ethan agreed. But we're alive. And in a world where the undead ruled. That was the only thing that mattered. The end. For now.